Welcome to a short preview of this Screencasts Online video tutorial. This week I'm going to be taking a look at a relatively new application for both the Mac and iOS, and that's Agenda, a recent Apple Design Award winner. Agenda is yet another note-taking app, but with a twist, as it's date-focused. You can assign dates to notes, as well as link your notes with calendar events to help you both plan and document your projects. Available for both the Mac and iOS, Agenda seamlessly syncs your notes via iCloud, so you're always completely up to date as you move between platforms. But let's start by taking a look at Agenda on the Mac. So here we are across on the App Store. I've done a quick search for Agenda, and it's Agenda-a new take on notes. Now, it's a completely free application with a core set of features, but you can opt for 12 months of premium features via an in-app purchase. Now, it's not a standard subscription model. If you decide to purchase the in-app purchase, you permanently unlock all current premium features. Additionally, any new premium features added in the next 12 months. After the initial 12 months is over, you still keep all those features you've unlocked, and if there are any additional features, you can purchase another 12 months of premium features. But I'll go through the current premium features available later. So let me go ahead and download and install this on my Mac. As I say, this is also available for iOS. We'll look at the iOS version a little bit later on. So let me just authenticate and we'll get this downloaded and installed. That's just a quick preview of one of this week's Apple-related tutorials from Screencasts Online. Screencasts Online is your premium source of Apple-related video tutorials. All of our members get access to brand new, up-to-date tutorials each week, as well as unlimited access to our entire video archive full of Mac and iOS-related tutorials. You can stream and download all of our videos on your Mac, iPad and iPhone, and even your Apple TV using the members-only Screencasts Online Apple TV app. Membership also includes a complimentary subscription to the digital Screencasts Online monthly magazine, published each month and packed with videos, articles, reviews, as well as hints and tips covering all aspects of the Mac, iPad, iPhone, and all of the other fantastic Apple products. So, if you're ready to start getting the most out of your Apple devices, visit screencastsonline.com today and become a Screencasts Online member.